Live tonight from the virtual Daytona International Speedway, we say good evening, sim racing fans, and welcome to RacespotTV's coverage of the 2020 Real Sim Racing Full Throttle Cup Series, powered by Boosted. We're getting set to go racing for round number 19 on this 2020 campaign. And as always, we're happy that you're strapped into the virtual seat and along for the ride with us here on a Monday night. We're alongside our producer, Hugo Luis and Dylan Coyle. My name is Evan Pasocco, and tonight we say good evening to you from the Daytona International Speedway, but from the road course. It's been kind of a full week of competition here. Started early last week with NASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series competition. Of course, all three of NASCAR's National Touring Series in action over the weekend. Now it's time for the Full Throttle Cup Series, Dylan, as we go racing for the second to last race of the regular season.
You know, you never want to say you're too tired of a track, but Evan, are you too tired of seeing the Daytona road course? Because you've been doing a lot of stuff with it lately.
It's such a fun track, and of course, this replaced Watkins Glen. Don't get me wrong. That's a fun track as well. We don't have all the storylines coming into this race like we saw over the race weekend. It's a simulator. If you want practice, you can have all the practice you want over the course of the last 2 weeks. But even with talking some of the drivers over the last 30 minutes before we've gone racing, some of the top drivers in this series nervous. This race downright scared about a dozen or so drivers away. We're looking at a field of about 25 cars. Of course, all those drivers on that critical playoff bubble going to be here tonight because we're just 2 weeks left. Possible win in your in scenario if somebody can bring an upset. There is a lot on the line here this evening. Of course, we're going racing on the Super Speedway as well in 2 Mondays' time, so no points are guaranteed there. So everybody in action tonight needs to lock it down. We're racing for 35 laps. I almost said only 35, but as we take a look at our championship standings coming into this evening, you can see Malik Ray, 2 wins crossed out in red because he has not met the minimum start requirements, so he will not be eligible to fight for the championship here in the postseason. So therefore, Steve Durham is in as the 16th seeded driver, but look at that bubble. Yes, he does have a bit of a cushion, but behind him, you know, those other names, I mean, it is really cutthroat, so I'm not quite sure how this is going to shake out, and tonight could be an opportunity for some drivers to seal something because they are quickly running out of opportunities.
Yeah, and if we're talking about drivers who could make something of the last couple races, I mean, you've got to look at drivers who have not underperformed but had some unfortunate incidents. I don't know how many times we've looked at Gary Sexton and talked about him, and all of a sudden it seems like a broadcaster's curse because something happens that ends his race or ends his run for a good points finish. But there's so many drivers, Sexton, Callis, Kammer, and Durham, they are all separated by 4 points. And only one of those drivers, if no outsider, wins in the final couple weeks and makes things a little interesting and spicy, then we're looking at all of these drivers just points racing. So we'll take a lot of looks at the lead pack in tonight's race, but I know for one thing, Evan, we're going to have to be watching some of the mid-pack battles because when we're talking about who's going to win here the first ever time we're at the Daytona road course for the Full Throttle Cup Series, that's going to be historic. But when it comes down to historics, I don't think any of these drivers matter. They just want to get the best finish they can. And if you watch the Cup Series race just yesterday, you saw Jimmy Johnson finish 4th. William Byron, I believe he finished 8th. And even though it was some good points days for both drivers, no ground was gained by Johnson. So every spot, 1 point, it's so important. And these drivers are really going to be hoping for a good run in today's event.
Yeah, and even if you're not a fan of the road courses, you control your destiny. 35 laps, uninterrupted, no full course yellows. Your fate is in your hands here tonight. Let's go trackside, take a look at your starting grid, and it'll be Kyle Kamer on pole position for this one. He passed the ball with a 1 minute 52.321. And will bring us to the green flag, joined by those heavy hitters. Daniel Eberhardt outside of the front row, starting second. Andrew Ferdinand, Michael Laraya, they're going to double up, be third and fourth in row two. Then Gary Sexton in need of points and in a great starting position ahead of Dylan Jones, Agnell Phillip, Rhett McBride. That's through your top eight. David Washington and Bradley Burke are on row 5.
Cole Fralick and Grant Davis round out the top 12, followed by John Fowler, Michael Kaczynski, Ross Cato, and Eric Stanford. And going a little further down is Matthew Mara and Kevin Winfield. Those drivers are the only ones that qualified, but we will have drivers like Jared Mogard, Brian Chambliss, Tommy Gossett, Steve Durham. And that's an interesting one. I do wonder if there was a mistake in qualifying where he just felt like his lap was almost aborted in a way, Evan. I'm not sure exactly if there was an incident there, because you want to qualify if you're Steve Durham, because it's hard to make passes here.
And he actually asked if he could go to the end of the line but still qualify up, so he feels like he's going to be a bit of an obstacle and he wants to stay up an issue. You mentioned Durham not queuing. He is the bubble driver. Steve Soa also not taking a time in the qualifying session, so that has him further down the road. Those are bubble drivers who need to be fighting for every bit of points that they can. There's your onboard looks, though, with some of our drivers this evening, so we'll be able to get those unique perspectives. Gary Sexton had us with the visor cam last week. We're once again looking at him in the sim rig bottom left. Matt Mara as well, some of the names that we'll be watching in with. But it is a modified version of the historic Daytona International Speedway road course with an added chicane here out of turn 4 on the Super Speedway, which becomes turns 13 and 14 on this modified road layout. We're going racing for 35 laps and 125 miles, and we're happy that you're spending your Monday night with us, as always, here on RacespotTV for an RSR first. The pace car going to dive to pit road, field in the hands of Kyle Kamer. Let's go racing at the Daytona Road Course, second to last race of the regular season. And so far, so good as Kamer maintains the lead down through the International Horseshoe. The turn 4 left-hander kink now down to turn number 5. This infield section, again, with those slow, flat, wide corners, going to be super easy to get these cars loose. But I'll tell you what, I think some of those drivers opted not to queue because they were afraid of some chaos early. Everybody through cleanly as we hit the Super Speedway.
Yeah, everyone really doing a nice job as they're going through turn 6, what they call in and out here, back onto the Super Speedway version. You'll see a lot of drivers cut as much as possible to go the shortest line. However, that means less speed. It's almost like that transition in turn 6 to the NASCAR turn 1, turn 7 in the road course version is going to be a little harder for all of the drivers to necessarily get the speed required to kind of compete coming towards this bus stop. But nonetheless, Kyle Kamer, who needs a win and can race on points, he is ahead of the competition, but that competition is strong, Evan.
Yeah, and it would not be good for Steve Durham because as we looked at the points, and here's our first trip through that added chicane. Those yellow curves started as kind of normal curves, but Daytona opted to make a change. iRacing followed suit, and they're all now those turtle curves, as we call them, as lap number 1 of 35 is in the books, and you really can't hit them much at all. You might want to hit a little bit on the right-hander there just to help the car rotate, but you can't get the tires all the way up and on them, or you're going to be way out of control as you see Andrew Freitas a bit wide through turns 1 and 2. Now down into 3. It's the Nana machine of Daniel Eberhardt looking to the inside, nothing cooking. And behind them, Gary Sexton's under fire by Michael Laraya, who was the best driver in the practice session. Missed out on that lap time in the qualifier. But he is all over his heels. Let's go on board, looking to the inside into 5, and we'll go side by side. Laraya gonna take it.
Looked like Laraya just had a better dive down and sticking to the apex of the corner, staying real low. The horseshoes, it's very flat, obviously. Every part of the road course version at Daytona is flat. So if you have the inside lane, you're pretty much perfect, I think, when it comes down to getting a move done. You're really not going to get any kind of advantage from being on the outside. That's why at tracks like Kansas with progressive banking, it's almost like the equalizer of performance to run the high line versus the low line. Grip levels can be different throughout a race, but at a road course with flat turns, it's almost always you want to get the inside line, unless there's a quick switchback that can be made on the next corner. I'm thinking of Formula One tracks have a lot of sections where you can just go left, right, and try and get the cut back, get a run from the outside. Even Watkins Glen, if we're talking about the carousel section right after the bus stop, that's a section where, because there's banking, it's not necessarily a bad idea, Evan, to go a little bit high and then try and get a run going down that straightaway.
Yeah, so a quick glimpse of a battle between Colt Fralick and Bradley Burke. Fralick made the pass, so he's up to 9th. Now taking a look on board now with Gary Sexton in his Redline PC Toyota Camry. That's his on board in the bottom left corner. You can see Michael Laraya up the road, who made the pass on him the last time. Same corner there, trying to do it on the Nani of Daniel Eberhardt, who's dropped a little bit off of the back end. Now the onboard with the Mara top right corner of your screen. He is that second look with VR goggles bottom right of your screen, and looks like Mara's got the does he have the 6-speed shifter down to the bottom right? Of course, we will see some drivers ought to maybe usually use that on a Monday night to actually go for the paddle so they can keep both hands on the wheel here, and of course that's going to make things a little bit easier for them. You know, your typical road course mechanisms in a stock car and a blip in the throttle on downshifts and whatnot to keep these things under control, prevent wheel hop, and boy, do these cars like to wheel hop. So, you know, talking with drivers early again, they thought there might have been chaos early. Didn't happen. I think they need to be worried about, you know, themselves as kind of their own worst enemy in this race, because I think it's going to be self-inflicted errors, because no one's going to get Chase Elliott in this race. No one's going to have a 977 league or whatever it is and have a yellow come out and have a green-white checkered, because at iRacing there are no full post cautions. If you set to, you know, decide it for the NASCAR rules, in road racing, we do sector yellows, so we are never going to freeze this field up. We're going to the end. So consistency going to be key. As you see Fralick, who passed Burke a couple of laps ago, trying to stay ahead of him. That looked for 9th on back.
And as you might have been able to tell from the broadcast this weekend for all the series, the question mark is fuel mileage. Now, it's a 35-lap event. Each lap is just over 3.5 miles long. That gives you till around lap 20-ish, I think, before you have to dive down into the pits for a new tank of fuel. But here's another question, Evan, because it is a road course, as we see Laraya trying to, again, make a move on Gary Sexton. These guys have had a great battle so far, but as I was saying, because it's a road course, you might see some two-stop strategies to take advantage of fresher tires. So strategies, they're going to be very different. So I would say anywhere between laps 15 to, heck, maybe even lap 24 or so, we're going to see pit stops start, and we'll be able to talk a little bit more about what the end of the race could hold just before the halfway point in terms of who's going to be fighting for a certain position at a certain point in the race.
And we're going to have to see if there's tire fall off that will encourage drivers to go for the two-stopper, because I know when I was doing testing, I think the max that I could get out of it, and granted my lap times were not fast, so that probably gave me a little bit of extra fuel maybe, but I was getting at about 19 to 20 laps. I know that the drivers last Tuesday in the Cup Series race that their max was closer to 22 or so, but yeah, 35, the I guess kind of logical choice, as you can see the plus minus gain now in the opening 4 laps of this race, I think, is to go for the one-stopper. But if there's some fall off, there was at the back of the pack even, and kind of on your own, you kind of do the Formula 1 strategy of pitting late and just kind of save yourself. As that exchange between the McBride and the 11 was close there, as Dylan Jones was pretty slow to the bus stop, and 5 makes a move.
Well, I must say, if we can go back to the bus stop, Bradley Burke, who needs points to just make himself a little more comfortable going towards the end of the playoffs. He just went into the wall and is now dealing with a race car that seems to be fine. He just passed the pits, so he's going to work with it. We'll catch a replay here, Evan. Just touched the wall, so not really any damage, you could say, from right there, but the braking, the wheel hopping. We'll just see what it looks like here. And when we say wheel hopping, Evan, we really mean wheel hopping. That is a huge thing. It looks like he just gets on the throttle a little too early and loses the back end of the car. It's so, you got to be so gentle with throttle application. Now he's down into 14, so it could have been worse, especially if we were on a closer road course, I guess you could say.
Yeah, this, I mean, huge in comparison to Sonoma and, of course, the Charlotte Roval. I think what got Burke there is he had the right side tires in the grass on the first part of that bus stop, loosened him up, and he kind of just got looser and looser as that thing would round. Again, as you mentioned, only losing 4 spots. Mariah making that pass on Saxon once more. Kind of deja vu, because 2-3 laps ago we saw Mariah initially make that pass in the battle for 4th, but then he proceeded to mess up in that chicane. So the turns 13 and 14 got too much of the turtle curves on exit, nearly put it into the wall. That's how Gary Sexton, who you're on board with on the left and taking a look in with on the right, was able to get the spot back from him. But I think between these two cars, Michael Araya pretty clearly the better of the two, and needs to work his way back to 4th. Now trying to chase down a top 3 breakaway, which hasn't checked out that much. In fact, a good battle for 2nd as Daniel Eberhardt trying to fight with Andrew Friedage up the road. There they are, side by side at the line. And on the inside, Eberhardt going to outbrake into turn 1. And the 90 car back into 2nd after Friedage took that spot away from him a little bit ago. So they swap back out 2nd and 3rd. That's good news for Kyle Kamer, who so far has been unable to totally check out, but with those two now swapping that position at least twice, his advantage has grown to about 2 seconds. He's looking off in the back of Eberhardt, and Friedage was awfully sideways off of turn 3.
Yeah, awfully sideways is one way to put it, but you're right. Cameron hasn't really been able to pull away from these two drivers. It's only going to help his race if they keep fighting, but, I mean, does that concern you at all if you are Cameron and you're not able to pull away from two drivers who are, frankly, costing themselves a lot of time going side by side through these slower corners?
I mean, if I'm Kyle Kamer, I'm loving it that those drivers are slowing each other down. If I'm those two, kind of the similar situation of Sexton and Lariah, Gary had the opportunity to pass him. Obviously, he's going to take it, but I think 2nd and 3rd pretty even on speed now. They would be well advised to not worry about each other and just make sure that Kyle Kamer doesn't get away. There's a lot of radio chatter back in the pack after a little bit of contact with Brian Chambliss and Steve Soa, I think may have touched, but they're discussing it on the radio right now, and Chambliss actually spun around out of the International Horseshoe, dropped about 2 spots, so the 25 machine loses a handful of positions in that. Here's a little bit further up the road, Michael Kaczynski ahead of the 89 of John Fowler. They fight for 17th side by side of the bus stop. Kaczynski lets one go, but pulls back up in front of Soa. The 75 cuts him a break. Of course, we talked about Soa not qualifying, but leading points. And, you know, not to get ahead of ourselves, but Durham was our bubble driver coming into this. Kyle Kamer currently leading this race, was below him. If he were to win, everybody everybody would shuffle down. And Durham was, close to Kamer in the battle, but unfortunately for him, Dylan, he is not close to the car in 15th. I mean, that is a 34-point difference. So if Kyle Kamer wins this race, that shuffles everybody else down an additional spot. That would make life difficult for Durham and K-List. Sexton doing a good job on points here tonight, but again, if a spot gets taken, that's not good news in SOA. So the race win a couple of weeks back for Dylan Jones, and maybe a race win here tonight for Kyle Kamer could be the worst case scenario for all these bubble drivers, as each time somebody else wins, takes away a spot from them.
Absolutely, it is the worst case scenario, as Agno Phillip actually got a little bit loose through the International Horseshoe. Couldn't get the throttle back into it and actually gave up 3 spots there from 6th to 9th in the 94 car. But yeah, as you're saying, a win by any of the drivers currently on the bubble, I mean, that's huge. That changes the game completely, and it basically sets up the entire Daytona Super Speedway weekend as you need to win. There's no point racing in the title anymore. And these are really the question marks, right? The road course and the Super Speedway, those are the question marks that everyone had going into these last 2 weeks. And the only way I'd say it's question mark is if you haven't really seen how Kyle Kamer has done on road courses throughout his career. He's consistently a top 10 road course driver in 3 of the last 4 races. So we're talking about the Sonoma race this year. We're talking about the Roval last year, Watkins Glen, Sonoma. 3 out of the 4 races on road courses, he has had at least a 4th place finish. More specifically, a 4th, 3rd, and 2nd place finish. Has not gotten the win done at a road course out of those races. Could this be that win? He's doing a great job right now, but when it comes to road course racing, Evan, you know this as well as anyone, it's about controlling the pace, controlling your car, not making any mistakes, because if you do make a mistake, it's really hard to catch back up, especially with no full course cautions.
And especially in these cars, again, inherently not made to run on a road course. You can kind of cheat with the setup on the oval, but I mean, at road courses, they are big, they are heavy, they do not like to brake, and it is very difficult to get all that power down. And they got McBride here back a couple of spots. Cole Fralick, really impressive to be the driver right now in 7th. He's up 4 spots from the get-go, started 11th, the runs in 7th, and I mean, he is chasing down big names in this series, like McBride, like Sexton, and some of the other drivers not that much further up the road either. So another one of those cars that has made limited starts with a late start to the 2020 campaign. Can't fight for a win to get into the playoffs because he is not playoff eligible, but making a statement after he told me after week 1 that he wasn't expecting the competition in this series to be as stiff as it was. He is having fun on the road course, and it's funny you talk about road course racing. When I raced in the 24 hours of Le Mans a couple of, I guess, months ago now, feels like it was just weeks ago, and that was my first kind of actual real road race on the sim, learning how to limit mistakes and whatnot. We actually raced against Cole Fralick. He was in a different class, but funny how that all ties in when you talk about road prowess. So the 87 certainly knows what he's doing when he's going left and right.
Absolutely, and if we're talking about Rick McBride, I mean, he is one of the most experienced drivers in the Full Throttle Cup Series. Actually, he's got 5 wins, or 4 wins that is. None of them have come at a road course, but in his first season running in the Full Throttle Cup Series, he had a 2nd place finish at Watkins Glen, and then just a few years ago, actually not even a year ago, in the Charlotte Roval race last September, he finished in 3rd place after starting in 4th. So he is a really good road course ringer, I guess you could say. 4 wins to his name. None of them have come at a road course. It's going to be awfully hard to make up a 13-second difference, but he is trying to make a move down the inside of Gary Sexton, who, after battling with Michael Laraya, has fallen off the pace a little bit.
He has. He has kind of slid back, and now he's kind of the lead car of this battle, which is what he would prefer not to be. last lap for Sexton, 1:58.1. That's a little bit under 3 seconds off of his fastest lap of the race. So a little bit is that tire fall off, but I think as well as just trying to be consistent. I think McBride and Friendly probably faster than him at the moment. I suspect they pass him before we get to pit stops. And I mean, this is a long road course. We are only working lap number 9. Kyle Kamer about to get on to lap 10. His advantage over the race lead has shrunk. Of course, you can see the interval right there. Only 1 second over Daniel Eberhardt, who a couple of laps ago got P2 back from Freitas. He's now reeling in the race leader. Not that Daniel Eberhardt needs to go to victory lane to get himself into a postseason spot. Already a 3-time race winner this year. It's not going to be the end of the line for him, but if he could keep Kyle Kamer out of victory lane, that could be huge. That is a huge hit on the turtles for Gary Sexton after contact with McBride there.
Yeah, we'll love to check a little replay of that. He, from what I think right here, it looked like the 5 car of McBride just got in a little too deep, hit Sexton, and then obviously it goes from here. So here's the view from Sexton. He's slowing down. He gets a little tap there, struggles to kind of keep the car stabilized and loses 2 positions. I mean, you know, the old saying, Robbins Racing, but you just got your brake marker wrong. It's hard when you are trying to drive right behind a car at a course that you're not necessarily the most confident at. It's called shadow driving. Sometimes you make a mistake if the other driver makes a mistake. And it looked like, correct me if I'm wrong, but it looked like Sexton went in a little deep himself, McBride as well, and just trying to stabilize it at that very difficult chicane, that very difficult new corner where you kind of have to have 2 braking zones. You got to brake straight coming off of NASCAR turn 4, and then you got to brake, you got to kind of turn left, trail brake a bit, then go back hard on the brakes before easing your way through the last turn of the course. It's such a unique track. I'm so happy that we're racing here in the Full Throttle Cup Series, especially as the penultimate round in the playoffs, or to the playoffs. It's just, it's so unique, and it really challenges a lot of drivers to see their skill level. And speaking about challenging, the battle for the lead is starting to heat up. Kamer is starting to run a little bit out of his tires. Daniel Eberhardt has broken over 2 seconds clear of Andrew Freitas, and now it's only 0.7 seconds separating the 8 of Kamer with the 90 of Eberhardt for the lead as they go on to lap 11.
And again, this is big championship implications. Daniel Eberhardt locked into the postseason. Kyle Kamer on the bubble has an opportunity to qualify in, and in fact, Steve Durham, who came into tonight 2 points ahead of him, is running 21 positions behind him on track. So this is a rough go for Steve Durham and the Doppler Durham on the radar entry, because of course, I think he knew coming into this that he wasn't going to be a strong road racer. Tough break for him, but Kyle Kamer is running so well. So yeah, of course, if Kamer wins, doesn't matter, he's locked in. Even if Eberhardt can steal this, though, it's still going to be a big night for Kamer to be that driver above the cut line by a significant margin, I think, close to 15 or so points if it holds right now, headed into that race on the Super Speedway in 2 weeks. But if I'm Kyle Kamer, I make my life difficult for Daniel Eberhardt. I am not going to let him go and maybe make the 90 move you. And I think it's an unfortunate situation for Kamer, because if I could pick one driver who I would bet would move you if you made him, it would be Daniel Eberhardt in P2. So I'm not sure how comfortable I'm feeling either way. But Kyle Kamer, yes, he's in a good spot if he just finishes this race. But because it's that Super Speedway in 2 weeks, he really needs to try to go after it. And for the moment, holding on as this battle continues for the race lead. And Matt Mara around in the 23 towards the back of the pack. We were just hearing about a battle for 15th position. He was in a 3-way fight with Ross Cato and Derek Stanford, and he lost, it looked like, on his own under braking right here. From the inside back to the outside, that's the left-hander turn 6. That's the Kyle Busch spin.
Yes, it's the not a full 360 though, and or 180 I guess it was. But those poor cones, those poor orange cones, didn't even know what was coming. But Yeah, that's the difficulty at this road course is that, you know, if we're talking about Watkins Glen, even more so than Sonoma, the barriers are pretty close. If you make a mistake and Maria's slowing down and is on the apron,
I believe he may have gotten a cutting the course penalty because I saw some grass in the bus stop on both of the right-handers. I think the second one got him because more than half of that car was actually off the yellow curbing. So I think that is iRacing's way, if you're unfamiliar, of slowing drivers down who cut the course. Of course, in NASCAR competition, you have to come to a complete stop and then go again. In iRacing, it'll assign you a time penalty to slow down and give up. So I think that's what it was, and it'll cost Amara an extra spot as Kaczynski gets by.
Yeah, that'll cost him a spot. And the dangerous thing that you can kind of get into is, you get so frustrated with your driving, and it's so easy to wheel hop or lock the brakes up and just go sliding across the grass. And grass, it can very frequently be like ice. And just look at all of the green space here at the road course. If you mess up, for example, at the dog leg in the infield section, if you mess that up, you're kind of careening right into the other part of the track. And it's not like you can just, you know, go start driving on that part of the track that you kind of just skipped completely over. So it kind of brings up a weird situation where it's not going to end up in a race as, again, Mara gets a little bit loose, touching the grass, trying to go down the inside of Michael Kaczynski back onto the super speedway. But it's not going to be a race-ending incident for the most part, but it can really hinder any progress that you can make. You almost feel like because of all of the open land, I guess you could say, it almost becomes more deadly if we're talking about a non-racing ending incident, as Kaczynski almost got a nice bit of Matthew Mara's front hood into his bumper.
Yeah, and that's the one thing when I watch lap times of drivers, not just in stock cars, but anything else that I look at an onboard with somebody who's much better than me, like a professional sim racer. You talk about Mara catching the grass. It's that they're using every centimeter of the racetrack. I mean, they are not like I am, leaving a foot or two, and I think that I'm close to the outside. I mean, they are all the way on the edge, and sometimes that means stepping over the line. So Mara, a couple of times there over the limit, and he has ended up out of a couple of those spots, but still faster, I think, than the cars that are actually in front of him. So he's far from done. I think he's got an opportunity to get back into this race. Also, a big incident with the 47 of Andrew Pellegrini that I caught. It wasn't a great night for the number 47 machine to begin with, but you want to talk about overcooking the brakes into one. Here's what happened. His night is done. He has gone to the garage after this.
You know, I'd love to get a little bit of telemetry right here, and I'll have to go back. You just overcook, and, you know, we're talking about all the green space. There's no green space at the end of turn one. And if we can ride on board, we get a listening to the throttle. Yeah, just way overcooks it, tries to correct himself, and it's done with there. I mean, that's just a momentary lack of concentration. It's a mistake, and one that's extremely costly at one of the only points on the track that if you make a mistake at a turn, you're pretty much out of the race. There's probably 3 corners like that here at the Daytona road course. We're talking about turn 1 and then both the International and West Horseshoe, I think you can say, that you're kind of done if you make a mistake there because of the barriers there. But just unfortunate. It's a mistake, but it's a big one. But I will say, look at the battle up front. Kyle Kammerer only in the lead by 1 or 2 car lengths over Daniel Eberhardt as they exit the road course section in the infield and go back on the super speedway.
And you saw the lap times there. Eberhardt has kind of been closing and dropping back a little bit. I think Kammerer has kind of forced himself to pick up the pace, but I mean, last lap, Daniel Eberhardt was the best car on the racetrack by over a second. It was a blistering lap of a 157.283 compared to a 158.188 for Kyle Kammerer. So that's how this is closed back in. It wasn't particularly a slow lap for Kamer, still better than anybody else basically inside of the top 10, but Daniel Eberhard just nailed his marks, and you can see they're cutting every little bit that they can in that bus stop, walking the line, which they cannot do in the chicane out of here. A good run for the Nani of Eberhard. Of course, we talked about Pellegrini with too much speed into one. The reason this chicane is here is to keep these cars sub 200 miles an hour going into there. You can see a little bit of a different design as Eberhard, I think, set himself up better. The 8 car of Kamer, not a good run off with a wiggle. And the battle for the race lead within 1 car length as we now take lap number 15.
I'm re-watching the Eberhard journey through the dog leg, or the bus stop, the bus stop, not the dog leg. And I can see there was a lot of course cut there. I'm not sure, Evan, how close you looked at it, but I mean, if we saw a slow down and yield on the time gained penalty being given out a few laps before, I mean, Eberhard was really close there. His right tires were in the grass, and he was not even on the asphalt for the entirety of that turn. So really close to iRacing giving a little bit of a slow down penalty. Something to watch out for as this battle progresses. See how much they're all willing to cut some corners.
Yeah, that's the key. You know, before we talked about the change with those turtles, the Cup Series race last Tuesday actually had the original curbs in that added chicane out of 4 on the super speedway. And then the following night we had iRacing Happy Hour, where we had a lot of the New World pros, and I was actually listening in on the radio and helping out with Ty Majeski's team, listening to his crew chief and Keegan Leahy for the Cup Series. And well, what they were talking about was basically finding how much you can cut it without getting penalized. Now, obviously, that corner has changed, but I think it applies to this as well. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I think on iRacing, it's if it's more than half the car cuts the curb, then it would be considered a cutting the course penalty and a slowdown. So I think Daniel Eberhard, I'm trying to think of fractions. That was probably like 4/10, like just under half a car left over. And those hundreds of a second are going to add up. I mean, that's going to make a difference as you're on board with the Bernani machine here, and here's where he was able to close in on the back of Kamer. That's the closest he got. I thought it was done there because Kamer was really struggling to get the throttle down. But, I mean, just listening in as we go on board here, and it's right
this might be the
right-hander. Yeah, and right there.
Yeah, it's close.
And the way the curb works is they're not going way out to the left. The curb is angled. If you're way to the left in the middle of the bus stop, you drive straight over it. So naturally, you are going to cut a little bit on the entry to that curb just the way it is. You can see they're not way out on the left, which is where that curb lines up with. They're on the right. You see Kamer nowhere near. He was totally safe.
He's
right
way
here. He is a little bit in the dirt, but I think that 90 machine of Eberhard, if he wins this race, it's going to be because of those little things. Positioning the car a little bit more to the right or to the left in the middle of these sections where you can cut a little bit more, cut within the rules. Maybe that could be the difference maker, especially if he can set the 8 car up going into one of those zones, make a pass for the race lead here. It's yet to happen. We are at lap number 16, so let's talk fuel strategy again.
Yes, let's do it.
You want to go for the 2-stopper, opting that you want fresh tires. Granted, we're looking at about 4 seconds of fall off per lap. I don't think it's an awful idea. And Steve Soa is on pit road. This is a gamble for a bubble driver. He is going to go at 1/3 distance down pit road on a 2-stop strategy. I think if you stay out for an extra 2-3 laps, you're still not in. You're locking into the 1. So let's remember that Steve Soa, before coming down to the pit lane, he's got his teammate down there as well. He was in 16th. Let's remember, if anybody else comes on the strategy with him, I know Devin Winfield was in, if this works or hurts him, because again, that's a critical gamble for the driver in that bubble. But if you're going for 2, we'll end the story. Now's the time to do it.
Well, someone else went in right before both of those drivers. It was Rhett McBride who, when he dove down into the pits, he was the first driver out of anyone to start the pit lane, the pit carousel, if you will, as we see another attempt down the outside. This is one of the coolest parts of the track because unlike the other turns in the infield section, you can take different lines to try and get the best possible speed out of turn 1. And as you see, there's some lap traffic that they are now starting to deal with. They passed Kevin Winfield. I guess not lap traffic, but Winfield, this will be interesting actually. This is going to show us just how much speed fresh tires will give to the drivers, and if Winfield's able to just drive right past the 2 leaders, then it's going to be an interesting story. I'm sure they're all monitoring it if they do have any spotters with them.
And it could be tricky because Winfield's best lap of the race is a 2-minute lap time. Of course, he's getting more comfortable as the race goes on, so his best lap's still slower than the last lap of the leaders up front, so he's faster than them right now. If he passes them, though, they'll probably pass him back very quickly, so he may just opt to hang out, not interfere, and
not burn the tires
for the race lead. Yeah, save his tires, but also allow the battle for the race lead to just kind of go on as such. But, you know, talking about McBride, who has also opted to go for this same strategy, so we can take a mental note of where he was before he came down pit road. He was position 5, 4 to 5. It'll be easy for us to remember. So let's see, with about 4 or 5 cars on the 2-stop strategy with the trip down to the pit lane already. We'll see if it works out. Bradley Burke,
Evan,
McBride, and then Soa and Winfield.
You overestimate my ability to remember things. You really do. But
well,
yes,
that's why I said 5th was good for the 5, because
right.
it makes it easy on math for me. I don't have to. I'll probably forget, but
this the bone's
it's a little bit
to
of
the other bone. Yeah, it's like music.
Same concept. I don't know if we can come up with a song to help us remember, but same idea.
The 5 cars in position number 5. Wow, this is awful. Let's let me cut
Road
this
racing,
right now,
ladies and gentlemen.
Road racing. Oh, it leads to some interesting times. It's definitely been a great battle for the league. Now, we haven't seen in recent years a close road course finish, and obviously we're just getting to the point where it's halfway here, if not past it, or at least getting to that point on this lap. As Dylan Jones, we see locked into the playoffs, has that playoff waiver as long as he races all the remaining races left before the playoffs, which is one more after this. But if we're talking about if we're talking, what was I just saying, Evan? It literally just flew out of my mind as quickly as it went into it. Help me here.
Well, we were talking about the 2-stoppers and math, and now it's hard because normally, you know, I can look at how many laps the guys on one strategy have been on the racetrack, a stint length, and tell, but the difference between lap 15 and being 1/3 distance in a 35-lap race and being lap 18 and half distance is very small. Though you could, in theory, have initially decided, hey, I'm going to pit at 15 or 14, go for the 2-stopper. You could probably go to the end of the race still. It's close, but you could probably do it. I mean, a lot of the time you don't have that ability to make an audible call and change your strategy. I don't think that door is closed here, so all of these strategies may be flexible, but your race leader's got to be coming in soon. We're halfway home this time.
He's coming in right now.
Right on cue. There they are. Kyle Kamer, Daniel Everhart down pit road, and now it comes down to executing in the stall. They're going to go for 4 tires and fuel, likely to be the only pit stop for both of these drivers tonight. It will temporarily hand the race lead to Andrew Farinaj out on the front row, but let's see as they both come in. We're going to be right next to each other.
Hey, I remember what I was going to say, by the way. The closest road course finish in recent years, 3.5 seconds at Watkins Glen last year between Farinaj and Dylan Jones. So we're not really used to just pretty much the entire race. These drivers have been within a second of each other. It's been quite exciting. It's a very exciting road course race. Sometimes we can have a little bit of a, I wouldn't say snooze fest, but it won't be as interesting as battles that can happen on the oval, but they come out of the pits pretty much the same exact difference that they came into the pits.
I just want to say, they were racing on pit road exit.
Yes, they were.
That is a really thin strip of asphalt with the grass on both sides, that pit road wall. When you get around the left-hander, you have those yellow curbs, which will just obliterate anything underneath the race car if you try to cut that way. And they were racing on pit road exit. So this is a fantastic show, it becomes now the battle for second. Everybody else, minus a handful of drivers deep in the field, have yet to come to pit lane. Probably expected Andrew Friedrich to begin the next time, but he opted to stay out, so he's looking to maybe lead a lap up front. And here comes Eberhardt back onto the super speedway at a turn number 6, and they're bump drafting at 150 miles an hour, but the 90 backs off. He didn't want to go for the move. He was on the bumper, but gives some space. Kamer survives as we go to the bus stop.
See how close all the drivers cut it here. Eberhardt gets a much better drive off, but as he exits the bus stop, it looked like he got a little bit loose, took his foot off the throttle, and now he lost a few car lengths there. Kamer's not going to have any worry going into this brand new chicane. It needs a really special name, but Kamer really protects the inside. That's going to lose him some time. He hops his left tires over the second part, and look at that closing distance. Eberhardt just behind him, not even a car length back, going into turn 1. It's going to be interesting to see the lines here. Kamer again defending. Oh, they almost come together. Eberhardt was trying to go to the outside. He's going to try a switchback maneuver, and he's going to go off the throttle again. Kamer really wants this win to lock him into the playoffs.
And I think Eberhardt, the better car now. I mean, you could see just the totally different methods, though. The driving lines between those two in that chicane were totally different, and it allows the 90 machine to draw on longer, but it is not going to pay off that time. Would have been a bold move to go the long way around at a turn number 1, but for the moment maintains his running position. Also for Andrew Friedrich, he did come down, give up the race lead, went for the 4-tire stop. It actually cost him a spot, though. Friedrich will fall back to 4th position, and Michael Loraya back down into 3rd to take that spot away from him. This battle, or those battles, about 8-7 seconds off of the battle for the race lead, which, as you mentioned, great for road racing. And now the questions will be, next time by, 15 laps to go. Still a long way to go, granted, in this race, but these guys get to go to the end. That 4-lap difference between some of those drivers that pitted earlier, as you can see Eberhardt drive it way into the bus stop and to make up so much time. Maybe then those other drivers, do they opt to go for a second pit stop, complete their 2-stop strategy? Do they call an audible, try to stretch fuel to the end? There's still a lot to be decided outside of this great battle today.
I mean, if we want to break it down to make it almost easier to understand for everyone, it's because a lap is so long here, you kind of have to round up or round down your fuel decisions a little bit more. And as a car can hold 80 up to 80 miles, not gallons, but can go 80 miles on a single tank of fuel, anywhere between that and 90 miles. You're looking at, between the drivers who pitted 4 laps outside of each other, you're looking at 20 laps at a course like Daytona, a 1-mile course. So, I mean, it's a big difference. It's not just 4 laps. It's 4 huge laps. I mean, probably more like 17 laps, 16 laps if we're given the difference there. But there's just so much to consider, especially as the top 2 runners start to run into this lap traffic. I really do not know what to expect, because for Rhett McBride, who is 16 seconds off of this lead pack battle, he's 5 seconds off of Andrew Friedrich. It's going to be, we're going to really have to monitor McBride's progress and see if it's worth it to go. I mean, I don't know if he's locked into the 2-stop strategy yet. He might just be looking to get it, as we see a side-by-side trying to pass the lapped car. The Kamer is of Kaczynski, and Kaczynski does the right decision and lets Eberhardt go. That could have been terrible, I guess you could say.
And he hit the eject button. Probably would have been better served to just back off earlier so that they'd both clear into the bus stop and he could follow through, but it was a little bit of a late committal and didn't want to turn down on the Nani. So he ran straight to the bus stop. He will serve his time penalty as he has to slow down to give up any time gained. And In iRacing, it is much less of a penalty to have to slow down for 3-4 seconds, whatever it is, than it would be to come to a complete stop. You see that in the Cup Series races, that'll cost you a dozen spots easy to get that car down to a complete stop and then rolling once more. And I do appreciate having that penalty break built in because, of course, I, as an admin, don't have to look at to make sure that the drivers are coming to a complete stop and that they're able to just penalize, kind of get self-penalized, and it's self-serving, cleans itself up. But this battle, no doubt, going to go all the way to the end of this race. Yes, we have strategy involved, some of the positions at the back. We talk about those bubble drivers going to be critical. A lot of that hangs in the balance in what Kyle Kamer does here as the race lead. But Daniel Eberhardt does not care about what is on the line for the number 8 Chevrolet. He wants to win around number 4 for him, not only just to kind of be the spoiler and to beat Kamer, but as we've mentioned all season, the point system in this Full Throttle Cup Series is a little bit different than the NASCAR Cup Series. There are bonus points into the playoffs, but there are no playoff points. So in the current NASCAR Cup points, you get a playoff point for winning a stage. I think it is 5 for a race win. And you carry those points into every single round of the playoffs, minus the championship 4. So if you win 4 races, that's at least 20 playoff points. You'll start every single round 20 points ahead of the next closest driver. That does not happen in Full Throttle Cup Series competition. I tend to be a fan of the older chase style. We do have the elimination rounds in this, yes, but it is modified. It is the older style of bonus points where each race win in the regular season will give you 3 bonus points only in the round of 16. So Daniel Eberhardt with 3 wins, he's got 9 bonus points. He'll start with, 2,009 points, over 2,000 points for everybody else, and it'll help. He won't get 9 bonus points starting the round of 12 should he advance, unless, of course, he wins 3 more races there. So that's how the point system works in this compared to the NASCAR Cup Series. Some of the slight changes. Watching a battle with Steve Soa and Brian Chambliss. Granted, we saw these two almost get together, if not touch, a little bit earlier in this race at the International Horseshoe when Soa made the pass in the 25 foot round, and it is 2-lap fresher tires for Chambliss on the bottom, so he is going to make the pass on the inside. So move Chambliss up a spot. He will take over position 16. Soa going to drop to 17th. And maybe that encourages Soa to modify his strategy to just try to stretch the fuel out to the end, this time by 13 laps to go. That's about 26 minutes of race time. And again, with no yellows, opting that you need to keep yourself on the racetrack and in control, but not missing anything up front. There's the gap. 6 car lengths, pretty consistent. I wonder if Daniel Eberhardt may be saving a little bit, Dylan, because when he was on the 8's bumper, right here actually, after the pit stops, I thought this is it. He's going for it, and he backed off. Wouldn't be shocked, and wouldn't be the first time if Daniel Eberhardt saved a little bit for the end of the race, and curious if there's a little bit of that going on right now.
Yeah, I would not be shocked either. And I can tell you one thing. Both of us know that Eberhardt is sick and tired of finishing second place or right behind a winning position. He finished second just last week at Michigan, and it wasn't that far off from him winning. It was only 0.07 of a second that he lost to Thomas George by. He wants a win. He's going to try and do whatever he can to get it, but with that, it comes patience. Now, look at that. He goes on the brakes.
We just had a big issue. Sorry, Cole Fralick in the 87 has blown up from position number 6. And I had mentioned the difference between some drivers who use the 6-speed shifter, maybe switching to the paddles. He tried to go second to third and went second to first. Blew that race car up after starting in 11th and having a great drive up to P6. That easy. Misshift, blown engine, and Cole Fralick's night is done.
That is such a shame for Fralick. And I mean, when you're racing a great race. Now, he has not really shown up that much in this series this season, but when he does get to this road course. I mean, you come with a finish like that, or you're looking for a finish like that. If you can't put it all together and you just make one simple mistake, it's, wow, that's just a shame for him.
It's a tough break, and that's why even in the stock car, of course, you don't have the advantage of going to the paddle shifters in the real world, and there's always that risk of blowing the car up. Granted, with kind of the small 6-speed shifter that you're used to in sim racing, I think it's a little bit easier to blow it up than a real car just as far as putting it into the wrong gear, but that's why I would opt to go for the paddles. You may lose a little bit, of course, not being able to go into neutral in certain situations, definitely fuel saving, and whatnot, but I would go for the paddles on the road course here on the sim, and a lot of drivers did that in the Cup Series race Tuesday. Cole Fralick, fan of the 6-speed. Tell you what, it's a hell of a lot harder to drive, and it's a lot more authentic, but that is the downside, and it's a tough break for him. You mentioned not a ton of starts, so it's not going to have a huge impact, but he was certainly trying to get a first top 5 in RSR competition after being one of the late entries for 2020. Unfortunately for him, that's not going to happen. So bumps everybody up a spot. McBride back into P5, which is where he was when he came down pit lane as the first driver in on the same lap as the likes of Soa and other drivers to kick off the fuel strategy. We'll see if he sticks with the 2-stopper or if he wants to go into 1, but he's back to where he was in 5th as Daniel Eberhardt is closed back in on the back of the gate with a little bit of traffic up the road, and John Fowler, 17th position. The next driver they'd be getting ready to put a lap down.
I think if you came into the pits around lap 17 or so, you kind of have the freedom to choose between a 1-stopper and a 2-stopper. Now, if you from there it's almost like a compromise. You're trading away the maximum pace you can get from going all in on one strategy to being able to be a little bit flexible, because it's not like a 2-stopper where you come in end of lap 14, you know for sure you cannot make it till the end, for the end of the race. So you're going to be doing a 2-stopper. You're going to get the maximum tire life from all 3 sets of tires. The one you start with, the middle one, and the one you end with. However, if you go to around lap 17 or so, you've lost a little bit of time from the 3 or so laps that you've spent, as we see a potential pass for the lead coming up here, Evan.
Looking to the outside on what is turn number 12 into 13, 14, and again, it looked like he just backed off of it. Of course, I'm sure it's a weird feeling, by the way, racing against somebody on the high banks of Daytona at about 160 miles an hour, because cars just don't react the same as you're used to. And of course, it's going to be a whole different Daytona challenge when we're here in 2 weeks on the Super Speedway, but I still think he's saving. He got there, could have looked to the outside and won like he did a few laps ago before this cycled through when he was back and maybe being a little bit more aggressive, but I have to think with those 2 good looks on the high banks that Eberhardt is saving. Granted, you don't want to screw yourself out and kind of try to set it up too perfectly, but I just think he doesn't want to make a pass now, burn his equipment off, and then give Kamer an opportunity to get back on him. He would rather be on the offense late in this race, as we're now inside of 10 laps to go.
I'll tell you what, this is Eberhardt's race to lose. Even though he has not been in the lead for really the entirety of this race, Kamer gets a little bit loose getting back onto the Super Speedway. If Eberhardt wants to make a move, it's right here like it's been for the majority of the race. But I just think Kamer is, I think he's a little bit of a sitting duck right now. If Eberhardt wanted to pass him, he could have many times. And in his defensive driving, as you see, Eberhardt just get out of the throttle, save some fuel, and still maintain that very short distance from Kamer. I mean, Kamer is going to have to defend like hell in a few laps time, because Eberhardt is there, he is coming, and he can make the pass when he wants. Look at this, he has the speed on the high banks. Will he try to make a move? No, he backs out again. What's going through Kyle Kamer's head if you know he's there, he's not making a move? Does your driving change a little bit?
I would almost back off just a little bit, and I know that sounds funny to say with a car on your bumper, but if you are convinced in your mind, hey, he could have passed me by now and he's not, that maybe I don't overdrive as much. You mentioned Eberhard lifting out of the throttle before breaking into the bus stop. Maybe I don't have to drive it in as deep. And, you know, I think when we say Eberhard's faster, it's probably if they, you know, we're not racing against each other by maybe a tenth, half a tenth of a minute. It's not a big difference. But Eberhard is faster now. As he takes a swipe and had to check up there as he got a little bit too hot into turn number 3. I don't want it to sound like we're not giving credit to Kamer either, because I bet you that he has been looking at his mirror lap after lap after lap, and he has not made a single mistake. You heard late in the race at Daytona this past Sunday, Chase Elliott up front being challenged from behind that car in P2 mentioned. I was just trying to keep him honest. And any small mistake by Kamer hands this thing to Eberhard. So even though we think Eberhard's better, and we're kind of giving Eberhard the benefit of the doubt there that maybe he's trying to set this up, as you'll probably see him close this gap back in the time that he lost in the International Horseshoe Deal. And I still think that Kyle Kamer needs to be, you know, kind of lauded here, because he has been perfect and needs to remain absolutely perfect. He can't do what Eberhard just did, basically. If he does that, Eberhard's gone, race done. He has to be perfect. So far he has been, as they're about to put Sean Kalis down.
You know, I know we've been paying attention to this top 2 battle for the entirety of the race, and for good reason. And if Kamer does come away with the win here, obviously that makes the bubble a lot tighter, I'd say, for a driver like Bradley Burke, and it makes it a lot harder for Steve Durham, Sean Callis, Gary Sexton to make it on points in, what is it, a week's time at the Super Speedway, or 2 weeks' time, that is. Talk about that, a week off again. That's going to be traumatic, I think. Everyone wants
Daniel Eberhard. He does not like those off weeks, but hey, enjoy them while you've got them, because when we come back, we are going to the Super Speedway. There is no off week to the playoffs, and it is 10 weeks in a row. And if you're planning on sticking around and fighting for a full throttle cup, that is a lot of racing.
So let's look at the positions of everyone else. While Eberhard and Kamer have the farthest distance between each other for pretty much the entire run over the last 20 laps, we see the positions gained. Adam Benefiel up 15 spots. Great run for him. Benefiel did not qualify, started 22nd, and obviously is all the way up into 7th place. But if we're talking about the drivers who are on the bubble, I'm not going to include Brian Chambliss, because he's I'll include him. You know what? I'll include him. And Jared Mogard. Mogard doesn't really have to worry unless there's a huge accident, because a huge upset winner here. And I wouldn't say Kamer winning would be an upset, but just a surprise to playoff standings or at the Super Speedway in 2 weeks' time. But Rhett McBride, he's pretty much it. Jared Mogard. Where is he? Mogard, he is out of the race. He is 24 laps down and 25th spot. That's not boding well for any chance of him to make himself not sweat, I guess you could say.
Yeah, that's tricky, because coming into this, he probably wasn't sweating. With
now he
Durham
is.
On the bubble with 322, and with Mogard with 377, that is
and
still
Kamer.
A big margin. Yeah, don't get me wrong, but if a spot is away with a race win by Kamer, and I know it's at a full field here tonight, but so even, you know, at the back of this field, 25th is not as bad as, you know, that would probably be 37th or so any other race. So he's still going to get points, but not great. I mean, I guess we're working off of a margin of 40-some odd points, which is the max. He probably still makes the playoffs, but you getting wrecked at the Super Speedway in 2 weeks, and all of a sudden,
boy.
I mean, and you can't control it, right? I mean,
exactly.
You could run the smartest race. You could be one of the drivers that hangs out in the second pack, 10 seconds behind, and you know, it doesn't
you could
matter.
you could settle for
perfect.
15th place, right? You could
Yeah,
just
you could
settle.
be like, I am fine. What do I need to advance? A 35th place finish? How many cars are there? 37?
Count me in.
Great. I will run in 35th spot, and you could still get wrecked.
Exactly.
That's why tonight is so critical.
A little bit of a slide
Good catch there.
Great job by Hugo Luis, our man in the production booth. Hugo is a tireless workhorse, so we appreciate you being everywhere, Hugo. Some love for the producer and the head I guess you could say, of RacespotTV. But back to the action. So Brian Chambliss is currently sitting in 14th position. Not bad. I think it's enough for him to not sweat too much. Bradley Burke, do you remember early in the race, he went off and basically kissed the wall? Oh, he's in 10th place. Pretty good run for him, especially if his spot becomes the last spot to make the playoffs on points. He would be sweating a little bit too, because obviously Super Speedway could be a surprise winner there. Who knows? Where is Steve Durham? Well, Steve Durham, he is, well, where is he? He's a lap down and in 20th place. He wanted to get the EOL, the end of line penalty at the beginning by not qualifying because he wasn't feeling comfortable at this course. But hey, 20th place, it's ahead of Sean Kalis, who was also right on that bubble, 4 points back. Kalis is in 21st. So not the best day for some drivers, but at the same time, some drivers who are on that, we're going to see a bigger separation than we had seen going into this race. I think, in conclusion, that's where you're going to see a much bigger separation from the drivers on that bubble than what started the night. And that, obviously, a lot of it is contingent on if Kamer is able to hold on and get the win here.
Yeah, there's basically two scenarios. Kamer wins, it's going to be wide open at the back as far as the gap. He doesn't win, it's a two-horse race. I think if Kyle Kamer wins this, he bumps up. Bradley Burke would then become the bubble driver on points. You talked about him getting back to 10th, and then at least coming into this evening, Burke was already 34 points ahead of Durham. And with Durham running so poorly, Kamer possibly winning. Kalis, next driver line you mentioned, not doing great. Sexton's having a decent night, but he's falling to P8. You know, they'd be looking at, I mean, probably needing to win. So depending on who wins this race, Kamer or Eberhardt, you could be talking about, in one scenario, 4 or 5 different drivers having a technical possibility of giving in on points, whereas in the opposite, you could have none. I mean, it could be more than 40, and that's it. You need to win. Granted, of course, you mentioned on the Super Speedway, anybody could win the race. And looking through, again, the only requirement is that you need to run 50% of the races. As you see a side-by-side battle here between Steve Soa and Ross Cato, who made his return to RSR competition last time out, battling for 15th and 16th. This is the final spot on the lead lap. Soa makes the pass. They are both going to get lapped in just a moment, but that's the fight for 15th and 16th. But, you know, just looking at the names that we haven't really talked about, Kuczynski, Grant Davis, Sam Nieto, Scott McClendon, Rhett Nichols, Liam Sheen, John Rodden, Andrew Pellegrini, Shane Parrish, Michael Mosier, all drivers who are mathematically out based on points, but a win next week will make them playoff eligible.
All you need in the Full Throttle Cup Series, it's not a specific points position that you need to be in like the actual Cup Series. It's no top 30. It's have you raced at least half of the races in the regular season. So 10 races, if you have, and you got to win, well, you're in the playoffs. And look at this. Kamer is having to deal with a lot of traffic, but everyone doing quite a nice job. I think it hurts Eberhardt. It's Eberhardt's exit as the 75 of Steve Soa had to get out of the brakes a little more. Soa is right now in that battle with Ross Cato, and he's going to get a better drive off here back onto the high bank section. But yeah, this race, you know, it feels both long and short at the same time. We only have 4.5 laps to go, but it's still a long time.
It's a lot of corners as well. I'm not going to do the math, but whatever 14 times 4 is, plus whatever's left on this lap. But, you know, I just wanted to mention as well, something we didn't catch on the broadcast last week was that Steve Soa was running at about 15th spot last lap of the race, and then went 3 wide out of 2 and was involved in an accident with 2 of his teammates. And I'm going to take a look now to see, because it was 15th on the final lap. Steve Soa ended up finishing that race in 26th. So that 11-point difference, getting in a wreck with your teammates on the last lap of that race, could also be what keeps him out. It's every single moment. Could have happened in round 2, could have happened in round 18. But every point, every incident, every decision that you make is going to have an impact, and we see that with how close this playoff bubble is late in this race. But let's focus now back up front, the battle for the race lead. You see more lap traffic up the road. They are not clean yet. Brian Chambliss, Eric Stanford, I think Grant Davis probably far enough up the road that they don't catch him. So maybe those two cars still needing to be passed, but this is it. This is the battle for the win. Andrew Freitas is 9.8 seconds behind. The top two are going to blow the rest of the field out of the water. But normally we're used to seeing a single car dominate in a road race. And honestly, we have been treated to watching Kamer and Eberhardt go back and forth so evenly matched. And that last time of the stripe was 4 laps to go. This is the battle for the race win. In the case of Daniel Eberhardt, it's an opportunity to play spoiler. It's an opportunity, as I detailed a little bit ago, to get 3 additional bonus points entering the round of 16. But it means so much more for Kyle Kamer, who, if he wins, can lock himself in right now on track for the 3rd top 5 of the year. But what he wants is that first trip to victory lane, and he has to stay perfect. He has yet to flinch.
It would be his first trip to victory lane since his only ever trip to victory lane. That came in August 2018 at Pocono. Started 3rd in that race, finished obviously in 1st. That was his rookie year in the Full Throttle Cup Series. His 3rd year right now, looking for that 2nd win. And you know, road courses, I wouldn't necessarily say they're his specialty, but they're one of his best kind of races to gain some good positions in. Never won at a road course, obviously, but I guess you could kind of say Pocono is that weird road course situation where you might have to shift, especially in 2018 with those Cup cars. But he is as good as anyone when it comes to these road courses. And I think next lap, I don't know necessarily right now, but I think next lap, you're going to see Eberhardt really start to kind of pounce on every little opportunity he can and stop saving some fuel and actually go for the win. And hey, Kamer, he finished in 3rd after starting on the pole at the race earlier this year at Sonoma. Well, he started on the pole today, and he wants to complete the, I guess you could say the NASCAR Grand Slam of getting a win from the pole. Not a Grand Slam, how about a 2-run homer? We'll take that.
Yeah, looking for max points as well. There's not a lot of points available, and we mention this every week. There's only 2 bonus points you can get, 1 for leading a lap and 1 more for leading the most laps. Kamer has secured the maximum bonus points in 2. But again, the points really don't matter a ton because the cars he's running ahead of going to be 20 points behind him anyways if he doesn't win the race. But because really exclusively it's the super speedway. If we were racing anywhere else, Richmond used to be the cutoff for the regular season. And admittedly, as we're on board with Eberhardt here, as these race leaders are catching lap traffic, even at Richmond, you could wreck out there as he's on the back bumper to Chambliss. I don't think it matters as much, but for that super speedway, you need to be safe. And again, Eberhardt looking as the 8 struggled a bit on Chambliss. Look at this. High, low, trying to shake the draft a little bit. Eberhardt again, though, backs off. I think likely waiting to set this one up on the final lap. This time by Popsicle 6 in the air. 2 laps to go. Lap traffic and Eric Stanford up the road.
Eric Stanford would be a very kind driver if he gets out of the way before at least they get into the horseshoe. Eberhardt on the outside, but that slow car, look at Kamer using it to his advantage. I think it stopped Eberhardt's momentum. Eberhardt gets a little bit loose, and they're going to the international horseshoe, just 2 car lengths in between them.
And it is defensive driving now. Stanford goes high. Kamer protecting the bottom. That was not a pretty corner entry, but he gets off of the turn. Eberhardt, you saw, could not go all the way to the left there because the traffic. So Kamer navigated that beautifully. The left-hand peak, turn 4, now to turn number 5. As Nandi is within a car length. I think if you're Kamer, you have to expect Eberhardt to go for it on the final lap. But he's going to try to make a move. The question is, does he go for the bump on the final lap? Does he try to do it clean first? And honestly, if I'm Kyle Kamer with a playoff spot on the line, if the 90
play a little dirty,
I am hitting him right back. And I think that may be where Eberhardt maybe overcalculates this, as he pulls back at about an 8th car difference right now on the oval. is the fact that, yes, you want to go late to not give him an opportunity to get back at you, but also you're not going to give yourself an opportunity to get clear and to get away from the same. Kyle Kamer out of the bus stop, onto the super speedway. The 90 car made up about 2 car lengths there. It's 0.4 of a second as they look for the white flag.
No matter what happens here, Kamer is still going to come out in the playoffs by points. He wants that win, though. Eberhardt, he's so used to second as he almost scrapes the wall. He said last week that he was tired of finishing in second and needs to get the job done. We're coming to the white flag here. Not only a battle for first, but very close battles for third and fifth as well. What an exciting finish to the first ever Daytona road course race in the Full Throttle Cup Series.
Yeah, we got 3 duos. We'll watch them all, but now the battle for the race lead. Eberhardt to the outside. Doesn't happen, and I just don't think that's a viable option the long way around there. So Kamer gets back in front. 3 car lengths. Look at Eberhardt, though. Way out to the grass. He'll dive down to the inside at a turn number 3. The difference now a car length, but Kamer gets a great exit.
Oh, man, you've got to look at going into the super speedway section. I think Eberhardt is going to get a very nice run there because Kamer gets a little bit wide, a late apex here into the West Horseshoe. I really am thinking it right here. Eberhardt is going to get a great drive off. Kamer is going to look to defend. He takes that long apex. Eberhardt is right there. He's going to go the short distance. Kamer actually gets a great drive off.
For the 8. Wow.
Wow, that was absolutely what Kamer needs. But as they go around the NASCAR high banks, Evan, the draft, I don't think Eberhardt is closing in.
I think he's too far behind. He's now a half a second behind. Mark it up as about 8 car lengths. This has been his strong suit, though.
No wheel hops.
Through the bus stop, he drives it in hard. Kamer right there. Did he cut the course? Eberhardt all over the grass, but he's still under power.
Oh, he gets the
Here
run.
he comes. 1 car length, the difference. The battle's going to come down to the final chicane. Eberhardt on the bumper. He'll go to the outside. To turns 13 and 14, the 90 gonna try to back it up. He'll look for the run. Final corner at the Daytona road course. Kamer still in front, and Kyle Kamer gonna hang on, wins at the road course, and is playoff bound. What a drive for the number 8 Chevy. Too little, too late for Daniel Eberhardt. There's the fight for third. Michael Araya, last lap pass on Andrew Ferdinand. And on the super speedway, a speeding penalty cutting the course for Rhett McBride. Dylan Jones passing him to take P5.
Are we 100% sure it was cutting the course? Because he might have ran out of fuel. If you remember, he was the first driver to dive into the pits. He might not have had enough to go all the way. Yeah, he was not even in. He crosses the line at 41 miles per hour, and he definitely he didn't lose any places except for Benefield.
Well, there you go. He just confirmed it over the radio. He ran out when he got up and onto the super speedway, so he probably would have held on to P5 over Jones. I saw them come out of the bus stop. The 5 slowed, assumed it was a speeding penalty, but it was not. It was out of fuel. So all those drivers who we thought initially were on the 2-stop strategy abandoned it. They all went for 1. McBride was not able to stretch it, and that costs him 2 spots, falling to 7th. That's a free position for Adam Benefield, who slides in there P6. There's a look at your top 10, though. What a finish.
What an unbelievable race. The difference between the first and second place finishers, just over 1/10 of a second. And at a road course, too. You never see finishes that close. So exciting. Michael Araya got Ferdinand at the very end of it. Dylan Jones, Adam Benefield, Rhett McBride, Gary Sexton, David Washington, and Bradley Burke round out your top 10. Agnell Phillip in 11th, and Grant Davis, the last driver on the lead lap, finishing in 12th. Brian Chambliss, Eric Stanford, Steve Soa, Ross Cato, Devin Winfield, another driver who went to that possible two-stop strategy. Actually picked up a good amount of places, more than I expected. Kaczynski in 18th, Matthew Mara 19th, Steve Durham 20th. That's going to really hurt. He's in a win or be out situation. Sean Kalis 2 laps down, John Fowler 11, Cole Fralick, Andrew Pellegrini, Jared Mogard. Sweaty? Is he? I think he is. And Tommy Gossett, I don't even know if he started the race, but look at this. This is just a beautiful sound.
Celebrating on the front straightaway at Daytona International Speedway is Kyle Kamer, career win number 2, first of 2020, and maybe the biggest of his career, because this one punches his ticket to the postseason and does it in the nick of time, because when we're trading out 14 turns for maybe 14 rows deep with 2-3 wide racing, he is going to be safe because he knows that he's got an opportunity to fight for the Full Throttle Cup. And why not do the burnouts in reverse? Kamer's having a good time on the front straightaway. We'll take a quick opportunity to step aside while he reverses maybe in the Gatorade victory lane, and we'll chat with him and the rest of your top finishers. Then you're watching RaceSpot TV's coverage of the 2020 Full Throttle RealSimRacing Cup Series, powered by Boosted, post-race from Daytona when we come back.
One of the 2 requirements in order for your license to be promoted is your minimum participation requirement, or your MPR. Your minimum participation requirement requires drivers to run a certain number of races at their current license level before being allowed to graduate to the next license. The status of your MPR can be found in your iRacing profile, which you can find by clicking on your helmet in the iRacing UI and viewing your profile. From there, click on the Licenses tab. This box will show you your MPR obligation for all 4 licenses and what you need to do in order to complete the requirement. All rookie level series allow you to fulfill your rookie MPR obligations, but as you move up the ladder, it can be hard to know which series will contribute to your current license. To find out, look for the green MPR Up icon in the series description on Tile mode, or the green Up arrow in List mode. Keep in mind that only completing your MPR obligations will not allow you to advance your license level. You must also satisfy your safety rating requirements in order to advance. MPR can also be achieved by running time trials, which we will cover in a separate tutorial.
And back live at the Daytona International Speedway, where RaceSpot TV's coverage of the 2020 RealSimRacing Full Throttle Cup Series is powered by Boosted, the place where gamers and creators go to monetize it digitally. Their team will build you a totally free e-commerce store and help get sponsorships for those looking to build their brand online. Boosted is the #1 sponsorship platform for eSports influencers. Join their team and visit boosted.club for more information. Welcoming you back into the RaceSpot TV booth, Dylan Coyle alongside myself, Evan Pasoko, after a thrilling road race here from Daytona as I go trackside and we talk with the driver of the number 8 machine. Bubble driver in the playoffs coming into this evening, a playoff lock-in headed to next week. Kyle Kamer, your race winner here from Daytona. We are talking with him now, and Kyle, I gotta say, we were looking over the last couple of weeks from 4 spots out of the playoffs to 1 spot out of the playoffs to now having held off Daniel Eberhardt for the entire race to a playoff lock-in. I know this race has to mean a ton.
Yeah, my heart's beating about 200 beats per minute. I need the Jimmy Johnson wristband or whatever that is.
To talk us through this one, we know in these road races, no yellows, you're going to have to go the distance, and obviously qualifying up at the front of the field in Q. I'm not going to say you surprised me, but you were P6 in the practice session, so did you feel like that was kind of a perfect lap? You got everything out of it, and did you feel like as well that maybe that track position helped you, of course, not have to make any extra moves off the get-go?
Oh yeah, I knew I needed to be on the pole just to try and avoid calamity in the first corner, and you know, all I was doing in practice was trying to get my brakes dialed in. I knew I was faster than I was running in practice. So my biggest concern, honestly, wasn't as much qualifying as it was the race, because you know, I can't stop making mistakes. As you saw quite a bit there, I'd start to gap Daniel, and then I'd lock up the brakes or whatever, and he'd roll up on top of me, and it was quite nerve-wracking.
Well, it's funny that you mentioned that, because as we were watching this, it looked like there were a couple of opportunities where Daniel got up to you on the high banks of the super speedway. Maybe he had an opportunity to make the move, backed off. We thought that maybe he was conserving to get after you late, but I do think it's funny that you mentioned all the mistakes you made, because we actually complimented you on the lack of ones, because, you know, he missed the international horseshoe once, went way wide, and you know, lost a second, and he was able to close into you. But we figured if you had made a similar move, he probably passes you, and it may have been more difficult to get around. Do you feel like that was the case, that you needed to keep him behind you to win the race, or if he had happened to get around you, would you have been able to fight back?
Well, maybe he was a lot faster than me, and he was just making a ton of mistakes. That's wild. I'll have to talk to him and figure that out. But yeah, I knew if he got around me, it was over. It's so hard to pass here. And quite honestly, you know, a couple times when he got pretty close to me up on the super speedway, I thought he was going to try to outbrake me going into the chicane. I was extremely thankful that he decided to let me have it. But yeah, this is going to the playoffs. It's pretty cool from where we were a few weeks ago.
Yeah, well, how would you describe the performance of the last couple of weeks? I know obviously you didn't need this win to get into the position, because all those drivers kind of around you on the bubble don't have a good run tonight, but especially because we're racing on the super speedway. Even if it was a 15-point advantage, you probably wouldn't have felt comfortable. So now that you know you're locked in, you don't have to worry about the stress of race number 20, and you'll get a little bit of a boost with those 3 bonus points to start the round of 16. How important is this win for you to also come a little bit late in the year and maybe give you some momentum as well going forwards with these couple of good weeks you put together?
Yeah, the biggest thing, I think you said it, was taking the pressure off next week. I can't remember a Daytona race where I finished without being wrecked, whether I wrecked myself or got wrecked by somebody else. If I had to go into Daytona and even, you know, just get 1 point, I'd be terrified.
So you will fight for the Full Throttle Cup in 2020, and you will not have to stress when we come back here in 2 weeks' time, Kyle, as you get your first trip to Victory Lane of 2020. We're taking a look at that number 8 Chevy now. Sponsors and shout-outs, all those good folks who makes it happen for you here on Monday nights.
Yeah, big shout out to Box Crush. They do web development and digital marketing, and they've been on the car all year. And SK Sim Racing, you know, Sean's been a sponsor with me in the past multiple times, and so always enjoy giving him a shout out when I can. And just all of my teammates, they've pushed me so much to get better and better, and appreciate so much time that my wife lets me put into this crazy little hobby.
I'll tell you what, we appreciate you racing with us at RealSimRacing. We're happy to have you with us on a Monday nights. Kyle, thanks for chatting. Congrats.
Thank you.
The race winner tonight from the Daytona Road Course, it goes to Kyle Kamer. Critical win, because he'll punch his ticket into the postseason. And Dylan, I'll pass things back to you, because for a second straight week, Daniel Eberhardt is P2 in a photo finish. Handful of bonus points possibly left on the table. I know he is not going to be happy to chat with you, but hey, you're a good guy. I don't think it's that bad. You're chatting with P2.
Yeah, okay. Well, I'm sure Daniel would prefer to be talking to you and also first, but Daniel Eberhardt, another second place finish. You told us last week that you were sick and tired of finishing second. What happened? You were there.
I was there, for sure. I just could not get through the first horseshoe. I was like, I was spinning my tires coming up out of there, and then going back on to NASCAR turn 1 and 2. I was really slow there, and that's where he would kill me. And then the bus stop in the chicane, the last turn, I felt like I had that thing figured out to a T. I'd mess up every now and then, just not paying attention to breaking points and trying to figure out where he's going to make a mistake. And just I made little mistakes that kept me from being closer, but I tried diving it into turn 1 and getting to his outside. And no, I think he had it. I mean, he was the fastest guy. I mean, it just sucks coming home in second, I can tell you that.
It's your 4th second place finish of the year. You have 3 wins, though, so no need to worry about next week at Daytona Superspeedway, or 2 weeks from now, it's Daytona Superspeedway. We got that another break week. I'm sure you love that, but 10 straight weeks after, well, I guess 11 straight weeks once you get back to the Superspeedway. Why were you, it just seemed like you had many opportunities. We thought it was fuel saving, possibly just saving the tires. Why did you not go for opportunities earlier in that second half of the race? After the pit stop, it just seemed like you were right there, but you just kept letting go of the throttle and coasting a little bit and letting Kamer just get what he needed to still stay in first.
I was trying to figure out a point to pass him. I was waiting for him to kind of make a mistake. It's very hard to pass at this track. It's like the 24 hours of Daytona, we drive DPs, and it's way different. You can go up in there and shoot up under somebody and pass them, and the car sticks. Well, this car has no traction, and it just feels like it's going to glide all the way up into somebody when you try to dive up under them and make a big, dive bomb move. So you're trying to wait for him to make a mistake, and I could get to his rear bumper almost every time, and you're waiting, and you're trying to just drive him to his mental breakdown of just trying to intimidate him, and it just never flinched. I mean, he made one mistake in 1 and 2, but then I made a mistake in the chicane before, and I wasn't close enough. I could have got him right there if I was, that was that one mistake in the chicane. That's what you cannot do at road course racing, is make a mistake for the leader to capitalize, because then he'll get a little ways out, and if he makes a mistake and you're not there to capitalize, you're screwed.
So you have one more race before the playoffs, as everyone else does in the series. Who do you look at as your top competitors? Obviously, we know for Ninaj, he has most wins this season, but driver who's in third, Michael Loraya, well, he's got the best average finish so far. You're just trailing by a few positions. I mean, do you look at it like you've got to keep your eyes on any of the top drivers, or is it just racing to race?
It's time to turn up the wick. That's what I say. It's time to go for it. There's no holding back anymore. There's no giving and taking. It's all about you and yourself. The teammate stuff's out the window, even at Talladega, but I've never been that way when we go plate racing or anything like that. I mean, it seems like to me my teammates get more screwed on their little thing, and I, run up front at Daytona and Talladega. So, no, it's a wild card. This chase this year is going to be different. Darlington, Bristol. I mean, there's a lot of places in that chase that's going to be crazy, or the playoffs. I'm sorry.
Well, I know you're not the only one who says the chase, or still says the chase, I guess you could say. In our hearts, it's still the chase. But anyone you'd like to thank for the second place finish?
Yeah, I would like to give a big shout out to Kamer. He drove his heart out tonight. And give a shout out to Sean and SK Sim Racing and all of my teammates. We push each other to be the best we can be. And also, this race is for my grandpa. We lost him 9 years ago to the day, and it still hits me now and then, and especially today. And I really wanted to win for him, but just couldn't make it happen. And then I got to thank the good Lord above and my fiance and my grandma for watching every race this year.
Hey, well, a second place finish is not too shabby. Congratulations, Daniel, and best of luck in 2 weeks. Enjoy the week off.
Thank you, buddy.
All right, now we're going to Michael Loraya, finishing in position number 3 for 5th time this year. It feels like he is just right there, right in second place. He's finished in second, actually. I believe it's 4 times. This is your first ever third place finish, though, in the 2020 season. A little bit surprising, but you've been fighting up there every single week, Michael. We didn't see exactly what happened with Andrew Ferdinand at the end of the race. Take us through that battle as we were watching the top two fight it out.
Yeah, I was honestly surprised that I was able to pass Andrew there. I elected to pit a couple laps earlier than he did, and that leapfrogged me ahead of him on the second run there. And his fresh tires, I knew were going to be a factor, and they came in, and he was able to catch up to me, and I let him have the spot. But with about maybe 10 laps to go, all of a sudden the tires started equaling out, and then I don't know what happened. Maybe I just was doing a little bit better job getting the throttle down to saving my stuff, but I was able to reel him in and actually make a pass on the last lap and get by him.
How bad was the tire fall off throughout each run? Because we were talking in the booth a little bit about the possibility of two-stop strategies, and drivers like Rhett McBride, who did try initially to do a two-stopper, ended up going for the one-stopper and actually ran out of fuel as he was crossing the line. He was going 40 miles per hour once he crossed the stripe. So how was that fall off?
Oh, it was definitely there. On fresh tires, if you hit your marks just right, you could hit a low minute 52, maybe even get in the minute 51s for a lap time. But after a couple laps, you would definitely start noticing the times fall off. And about 8 laps in the run, you're going to start hitting high 155s and get into the 156s. So it was definitely there. But once you got to that area of time, then it kind of just started leveling out. And as long as you're doing your job as a driver, just hitting your marks and being easy with the throttle off the corners, then you could run consistent laps from that point on.
So obviously, this is your first season in the Full Throttle Cup Series. You're getting to the end of the regular season. What's your take on all of the competition? Because like we said just a little bit ago, you've got the highest average finishing position out of all the drivers who have raced almost every race or every race itself.
Yeah, it feels pretty good to be in contention week in and week out. Honestly, though, I got to start winning some races, though, because with this points format, coming in second or third isn't going to do it. I know it's going to come down to the wire at Phoenix, and very likely whoever wins this championship is going to have to win that race. So I just got to find a little bit more speed. I mean, my execution I feel like is really good, but I just got to do a better job capitalizing at the end of the races.
So in the 5 races that you have finished in second place, get this, you've only led a total of 6 laps. What is kind of keeping you from achieving that winning status? Because, of course, once we get into the playoffs after Daytona, you win and you're through each round.
I think part of it is just with certain tracks, having clean air is really important. I'm qualifying well, but the guys that are out qualifying me are my best competition, so that just makes it even harder. So I got to find a little bit more. I don't know what it is, but it feels good to at least be in the conversation. And the other problem too is these guys just don't make mistakes. If they were making mistakes every few races, I feel like my consistency, it would really pay off and I can get more wins, but you're just not seeing those mistakes. So just got to find a little bit more on the track, and hopefully that'll do it.
Awesome. Well, is there anyone that you'd like to thank, or anything that you'd like to thank for this race and your performance so far this season?
Yeah, I got to thank Profile Machine Products for being on board the car. I also got to thank my Flat Out Racing teammates, Grant Davis, Bradley Burke, Joey Tice, and Sam Netto. And I definitely want to give a big shout out to Grant Davis for putting in a lot of effort this week to improve his road racing skills. He was on almost every week, and I was helping him out. He's a really dedicated teammate, so I got to give a big shout out to him.
Awesome. We love to hear some teammate shout-outs. Well, thank you once again, Michael. Congrats on the third place finish. It's your 7th top 3 podium finish of the season.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Absolutely. Well, we heard from all of the top 3 finishers, Evan, and there's one race to go. One race separates us from being able to say exactly who is going to be in the playoffs and who's going to be, well, not sitting at home, but just dealing with the fact that all they can do is just race for a win and enjoy the ride.
And I'm happy to say now we have your favorite part of the night where we can look at our championship standings coming out of this evening.
I already caught it.
We still have to go with post-race reviews and whatnot, but of course, courtesy of the win, Kyle Kamer is locked in. He's going to fight for the Full Throttle Cup in 2020. And that battle above P16 was a big margin, so it is now a big gap at that points line. Bradley Burke's our bubble driver. His only concern, I think, being 36 points ahead of the next car, is if somebody below him wins. And we'll talk about that next, because it's the super speedway. If there's going to be a race where we get a surprise winner, this is when it's going to happen. NASCAR knew what they were doing when they made the regular season finale, the Daytona Super Speedway, and we followed in suit. So then behind, Gary Sexton, who misses a night, wrecks out of a night, all of a sudden, he now needs to win a race. Steve Durham, Sean Kalis, Steve So, I mean, those were drivers who were close, but I think those 2 wins by Jones took a spot away and Kamer now taking a spot away is the difference for them. If those 2 drivers don't win, we might be talking about a 5-10 point margin in a battle for the final transfer spot. So instead, we now know it's going to come down to needing a race win. There's no sort of eligibility questions unless Dylan Jones misses for some reason. Then he wouldn't meet the starts because he had to start 9 of them that he was eligible for. He got a waiver for the 1 week. So unless Dylan Jones, for some reason, has an internet issue, doesn't show up, there is no question about eligibility. You need to win if you want to boot Bradley Burke. And maybe there's a battle within a battle there, because Burke is only 6 points behind Jared Bogard. He's only
look at
9
Brian
points
Chambliss.
behind Brian Chambliss. Yeah, so if I'm him, I'm trying to get ahead of those guys, because if somebody wins, I could fight for a little bit more. I think you need to mentally say, I need to be top 15, not top 16, because there's a chance those drivers can pull a win out.
And even if you finish in 15th place, that might not be enough if drivers in front of you are driver. If you're Bradley Burke, you need to finish top 10. Just to feel comfortable. You're still going to be sweating it out, but to feel comfortable, you've got to get a top 10 finish, which is no easy task, especially at the roll of the dice that is the Daytona Super Speedway. And I think that no matter where you are, you're going to be sweating it out. If you do not have a win, you're going to be sweating out. That's Chambliss, Mogard, and Burke. If we're talking about making it in on points, say there's no repeat winner, I mean, it's almost mathematically impossible what would basically have to happen. I don't even know if this even is possible, but if you'll have to have a full field of almost 40 drivers. You'll have to have Bradley Burke
which you could get, by the way. I don't think we're only going to see 25 cars like we did tonight. I think we see a big field, so that does put more points on the table.
I think that Bradley Burke, if he did not win, he'd have to lead a lap, maybe even lead the most laps, and finish second. And Gary Sexton would have to finish second, lead the most laps, get those 2 extra bonus points. And that would give him 37 points, which would put him just in by a point. Burke would get a point. Even if he finished last, you get a point, right? So, I mean, you're not looking at points racing.
Mathematically is different than realistically, I think. Right. Mathematically, it could happen, and it could happen. I mean, there's a percentage possibility. And again, I only mentioned with Jones' eligibility because I don't think Dylan Jones is just not going to show up.
Yeah, not.
But it is sim racing. Things can happen. You might miss a week, computer issues, internet issues, whatever. That could apply to those drivers. It could apply to drivers battling for the bubble as well.
So if we're talking about drivers who will be eligible with a win, I mean, if a driver who has not met that 10 race threshold by the Super Speedway race or does not have a playoff waiver, I mean, if one of those drivers wins, you're safe because they're not going to be in the playoffs. They got the win, but they're not going to be eligible for the playoffs. So the drivers you're going to have to worry about, and I'll spell them out here. You're going to have to worry about if they make the race. Blake O'Connell. He's currently only raced 9 races, all the way back 43rd in the point standings, but if he gets a win, he's in. And it's the super speedway. We have no idea what's going to happen. Nicholas Caldwell, he's got 9 races raced as well. Jonathan Cattle, 9 races. Michael Moser, 11. Austin Wagner, 9. Trevin Valderrama, he's raced almost the entire season. He just has not finished in very strong positions. His team name is Subpar Racing. So if that tells you a little bit of how he feels about himself and Michael Moser, there you go.
Yeah, Steve Soa has been kind of the leader of that team.
Yes.
Who's been a bubble driver that we've really talked about the last couple of weeks. They could win too. So
yes, Kaczynski. I mean, Raleigh Grant Davis. I don't know how I say Raleigh. Sam Nieto. Remember how close Nieto was to a win, I believe, at Chicagoland. That might come back to really hurt him. Rhett Nichols, Andrew Pellegrini, John Rowden. I mean, there are so many possibilities that can happen, and all of it will come down to the 2.5-mile high banks of the Daytona Superspeedway. I'm so excited to watch it. I'm going to miss being in the booth for that one.
I'll tell you what, it's funny because we talk about how Daytona is the race in which anybody can win. So that kind of sounds like we're saying it's one of the easiest races. But we also talk about how when you try to overthink things and you talk points, it is not easy. Anything
just race to win.
Happen. You could race for the win, get wrecked out. You could try to, like we were talking about, try to hang back, get in a wreck too. You have to have a fast car, have the guts to go for it, have a little bit of lady luck on your side. And we'll know officially 2 weeks from now who our 16-car field is, who we're going to fight for the Full Throttle Cup in 2020. Until then, though, that is it for us here tonight from the Daytona International Speedway Road Course. We are off next Monday night. It is the season finale of the RealSimRacing IROC Series. You can keep up to date with all of that, the Outlaw Trucks and more on the RSR social channels. And if you want to get involved, go to realsimracing.org for more information. But until next time, that's it for us. We will see you back here at the end of the month on August 31st from the Daytona International Speedway Oval. That race and every race of the 2020 RealSimRacing Full Throttle Cup Series, powered by Boosted, going to be found right here exclusively on RacespotTV. So for Hugo Luis, Dylan Coyle, and myself, Evan Pasoko, thanks for tuning in. Congratulations to Kyle Kamer, first-time winner in 2020, and we'll see you on the high banks in 2 weeks.